In today's episode, I sit down with Julia Waller, one of the guiding voices behind Unique Ability at Strategic Coach. We talk about what happens when you stop trying to fix your weaknesses and start doubling down on what's already working. Julia shares the origin story of Unique Ability, how it went from an idea inside of Coach to a way of life, why focusing on what you love and do best might be the most generous thing you can offer the world. It's a conversation about clarity, contribution, and the joy of becoming more of who you already are.
Welcome to Beats Working, Winning the Game of Work, hosted by Dan T. Rogers. This show invites you into conversations that go deeper than job titles and hustle. It's about rethinking what work is for and how we can design it to serve our lives, rather than the other way around. Here, we'll talk with leaders, makers, and thinkers who are doing more than earning a paycheck. They're getting paid to practice life.
So, Julia, I hope everyone goes back and listens to your other interview. There'll probably be a little bit. So one of the things that was so amazing in working with you is it's as if I was like learning physics from like Newton or it's like, let's study Newtonian physics with Newton, because we were in Unique Ability with somebody who was so living their unique ability, so obviously living their unique ability that, and then you know me a little bit. So then I was sort of like, I want to be in the moment, but I want to observe the moment, be in the moment. So maybe we start with, no pressure, but what is unique ability and how did you, I think you've probably been living close to it, but like tell us the story of Unique Ability from your eyes and maybe from the eyes of Strategic Coach.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. That's very high praise. It's like,
it's super common for everyone who's ever done the process. Just to be clear.
Thank you. People do joke that Unique Ability is my unique ability, so that's always like that. I'm always happy when people say that because I am. And it's funny. I was on the plane coming home from Arizona Colby conference, and this guy, he's like, wow, you sure are passionate about this stuff, because of course I'm going on about Colby and then Unique Ability and blah blah blah, and so that is true. That is definitely true. So yeah, well, from strategic, so I've been with Strategic Coach for ever, basically over 28 years now, and I immediately was attracted to the concept of unique ability. Dan tells a great story in the Unique Ability book of how he came up with the concept, where he actually was doing a study way back in the 1980 or something, working for the government, if you can believe it or not, contracted to the government. But he was studying people with disabilities, actual physical disabilities, I believe. And what his great insight, which to me is the coolest thing, was that well, first of all, he observed people and he noticed that the people who focused on their area of ability were the ones who did the best. And which kind of makes sense logically, right? But he was observing it day to day in his study. And then the other thing that he noticed was that we all have areas of disability, which is also true. But he put those things together, and then, unique ability. And I think then working with Babs, unique ability has become the core concept of Strategic Coach, because the idea is the more you focus on what you love to do and do best, which if you want a really bottom line definition of unique ability, that's really what it is. Now I'll give you some more than that. But if you focus on the stuff that you're really, really good at and you really love doing, and you get someone else to do the other stuff, that's how you're going to make you're going to get the biggest results. You're going to have the most fun. It's going to be the most meaningful life. It's going to be all the coolest things in the world if you focus on those things. And the key is to figure out what those are and surround yourself with people who support you in doing more of that and who will take the other stuff off your plate. So that's what we do, and that's what we've done at Strategic Coach for all the time that I've been there. And I've watched the success of people like you, people like our clients, our members of our community, who take that seriously and they take their uniqueness seriously. So if we look more at the definition of unique ability, it's really, I see it as your unique set of talents that were God-given. You were born with them, and you've been developing them since you were, whenever you were born, and you keep getting better and better at them, and you keep applying them in new situations. And you create value. It's really essentially how you create value for everybody around you, your family. It's not just business. It's not just work. It's not just, it's parenting. It's who I am as a parent. It's who you are as a parent. It's who we are as community members. It's who we are as neighbors. It's basically who we are. I go, when we first started doing Unique Ability, we would just look at someone's activities. How are they spending their time? We'd say, oh, so my unique ability is coaching, or my unique ability is speaking, or my unique ability is, strategic thinking, problem solving, envisioning a bigger future, which are all unique ability activities, which is when you're diving into unique ability, it's the best place to start because it's the simplest, right? We look at how do you spend your time? What are the things that you're really good at and you love doing? They energize you. They keep you going. They're fascinating. They're motivating. You're like, ooh, yeah, could I just do this? I don't want to do that stuff, but I want to do this stuff over here. Yeah. If you just do that, then that's cool. Now, what I became fascinated with was what's deeper and beneath that. It's like, okay, well, for example, Dan Sullivan, he's an amazing coach. Well, why? What makes him an amazing coach? Who is he being? What is he actually doing that has people say he's such an amazing coach, or whatever they say, all the good stuff. So that's the process that I kind of went down to. I kind of looked around the coach. Dan's always creating new tools and concepts. And I had just become the leader of a newly developed team. It was actually our coaching, training, and development team, the coach resource team, we called it. And we were getting bigger. We had more associate coaches now, and we needed someone to, they were getting their coaching in various ways. It was very kind of bottom line. Oh, watch Dan coach, and then off you go and you coach your workshop. There wasn't a lot of depth of training, and there was probably a little bit more than that. But we had a few associate coaches now, and Babs was doing the training, Dan was doing the training, and Babs said, you know what, Julia, I think, we need a team for this, and why don't you lead the team, which at the time terrified me. But Babs is really good at seeing people's strengths and pushing them in the direction of growth. So that's what had me then look around, because I had a small team, and I was like, well, my number one thing, and this is just what I care about most in the world, was to make sure my team was growing and developing, because that's what I love to help do. And that's what I know matters to me. And I thought, well, if they're growing and developing, then they're going to be engaged and they're going to create great results, and all the good things will happen as a result of that. So I kind of just saw Dan. He had this tool one day in the cafe called the 10 Best Habits, and he was kind of doing it a certain way. And I was like, I think that's actually a unique ability exercise, and then some of the coaches were kind of chattering about, hey, maybe we could write someone's unique ability in a sentence. And I was like, ooh, that's a great idea. Let's figure out how we can do that, right? Because people say, well, yeah, my unique ability is coaching and speaking, but I don't really still know what my unique ability is. So it's like, wouldn't that be great if we had a statement that you actually could say that my unique ability is blah, blah, blah. So I just kind of pulled together these tools and started doing it with Barb on my team, and she had a great experience. So she's like, hey, this is really cool. Maybe other people in the company would like this too. And I was like, hey, my door is open. Have them come over and let's do it. It was so organic. Like, it was just, there was no plan to do this. There was no like, hey, Babs said, Julia, can you start doing this? It was just came from me having the space. This goes back to having a unique ability culture, where I felt like I just had permission to kind of follow my nose and do the things that I thought were important. Obviously, I'm doing it with the alignment with the company, but our motto in Backstage is always be growing. So I have my own interpretation of that. I think that means growing people's talents and strengths. I'm sure Babs thinks it's like put butts in seats, keep growing the number, which I want too. But I wanted people to be growing, and so I just kind of followed my nose, and that's kind of probably I went all over the place, but that's the story of how I got into it. And then, that eventually over time became my full-time role, partly because we had some client, like later down, I was doing it Backstage with our team members for probably at least 10 years, maybe longer, before we had a client raise his hand and say, hey, I would like someone to do this process with me. And we had written the Unique Ability book, the old version, and it was out there. And, you look at the book and you're like, okay, great. I'm not going to do that by myself. I need someone to help me. And Babs said at the time, no, we don't do one-on-one coaching. We only do group coaching, because that was true. We just have our one-on-one support between the programs. But anyway, this guy was really persistent, and I always thank him. And finally, Babs caved, and she threw me out into the marketplace with him. And I was like, "What? Okay." So he paid his money and came to Toronto, and we went to the coffee shop back in the day. And I had my little erasable pencil that I would write all in one sentence before I even typed it on the computer, which is hilarious. And we came up with his 10 best habits and his unique ability statement and action plan. And that was kind of the start of me doing it front stage with our clients. And that's how I ended up doing it with you back. It was 2020. I looked it up just now.
Well, there you go. Look at that.
I know.
That is.
So,
it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. So one thing I want to throw out there, that unique ability, I mean, I think folks resonate to it to some extent. But there is that sort of, I'll say, common sense, or just the unbelievably parroted advice of, well, be diversified, work on your weaknesses. And I mean, I love, I don't know that he said it first. I heard it from him first. Don't work on your weaknesses, because even if you get really great at them, you're just going to be average. Right. And it is sort of counterintuitive to sort of, I'll say, common sayings, at least. I don't know if it's common advice or common sense, but to really lean in on the unique ability, right? So I think that is a unique perspective, at least for the time being. But it's not surprising it gets totally extraordinary results. Right? If you do what everyone else does, you get what everyone else gets, right? So everyone else is working on their weaknesses, potentially to be well-rounded and super diversified. And then there's this group of high performers who just like, no, we're going to go all in on what we're good at and see what happens. And and
guess what? They're the most successful of anybody. And they focus on this fewest things, or their unique ability applied to the right situations, and they do get the best results.
Yeah. Well, and I'm hopeful that folks who listen to the story, which I thought was really, really great, can see why I made the comment of, like, when you work with you, it isn't a joke that your unique ability is unique ability. It's a statement of fact etched in tablets there that, I mean, obviously, it's your unique ability. It's what you were here to do, or certainly part of what you were here to do at a minimum. And it's not surprising, it's surprising because the details are always surprising. But when you hear the story about how it just came in, even your own unique ability story starts off, so it's just a great example of what this looks like. And if there are business people out there, I mean, I think it's also another great example of, frequently what you're doing internally can be turned into, at the right time and place for the right reasons, backstage activities can be turned into front stage interactions for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I think, the culture, I would say, I've probably repeated this a million times, but when I first started at Strategic Coach, my sister Shannon also works at Coach, and they never, ever tried to make me be more like Shannon. It was always like, oh, here's Julia. What's Julia made up of? What's she all about? And how do we help Julia be a better Julia and add Julia's talents to the vision and the company? And Babs has always talked about our company being created by the capabilities within. So that can be both backstage, and some people are just backstage. And I was backstage for the longest time. I mean, I love hanging out with our clients. It took me time to kind of get more comfortable in that. And now I love it, and it's still surprising to me some days. I'm like, these highly successful entrepreneurs, listen to me. I'm like, why are they listening to me? But I think partly it's because I listen to them. I'm really, what I do is, I was one of those quiet kids who would sit and observe and listen. And I think, listening is part of my best habits of what I do well. And partly because I'm just darn fascinated by people's strengths and talents and their uniqueness and how they're all different. And I know, not in like a fake way, but in a super cool way. It's like, oh, well, how does Dan Rogers think and act and behave and be? And what is your philosophy of life, if you want to call it that, versus the next person who comes in front of me? They're completely different. And unique in their way. And it's all the stuff that you just kind of take for granted. And this is a big thing with unique ability, is we don't really value it as much because it's natural. It's just like breathing. I always used to say, people, I'm like, can you describe that for me? What are you really doing? And they're like, I have no idea, Julia. I am just doing it. It is like breathing. I'm like, great. So if you had to describe it, what would you say? Right? If I really put your foot on the fire, what would you say? And then tell me a story of when you did that. And then I would. People are much better now, I think, at describe. Maybe I'm asked better. I don't think I even ask different questions. I'm basically asking the same thing all the time. What's behind the curtain? What are the inner workings of the brain, of the heart, of the mind, of the beingness of the person, and what is it? And it's on. It's like when this is for me anyway. If someone's curious, like you're curious right now, and you're asking me questions, so I'll tell you anything I can tell you, because I know you care about what I'm saying. If someone's shut down when you're talking to them, you're not going to share. I don't share much, But if they're interested, I'll share. So I just am super interested and fascinated. And then I, of course, I help organize the words and reflect them back, where I listen, what their goals are, what they really want in life. And I'm just like, hey, well, you said this, why don't you go do this? You really want X, Y, Z to happen in your life. And I am the encourager, the encourage, like have courage, go jump off the cliff. Because that's what you want to do. And you've got all the talents to do it. So why not? And the people I work with are so darn talented that you guys can do whatever you set your mind to if you want to.
So knowing what you know now and sort of everything that you just said, maybe like what's sort of the first time that if you reflect back as far back as you can remember, where you did sort of your first unique ability interview? Like, because I absolutely can see you being that person in high school and maybe even elementary school. So maybe when was like the first time was that?
Gosh.
Can you remember a time not doing it?
Yeah, I don't know that. You see, I'm trying to, like, before strategic coach was kind of like a big, sliding doors moment, right? Where I went through the strategic coach door. I mean, I was a teacher before, so I for sure did it in the classroom with my kids. I mean, I don't know that I got super deep with them, but I definitely created an environment in my class. I taught in international schools overseas and stuff. So I had more freedom, which was great. And the kids ran the classroom. I gave them each responsibilities. I could see that, Jorge needed to move around and run around. And Danielle, this is a true story, was like amazing with like plasticine and building stuff, like other areas he struggled with, but he was a great builder. So I could see the differences in the kids and the strengths in the kids right away. And I would okay, like I would try and teach like at the front of the room for like the most minimal amount of time. And then I'm like, okay, everybody go do your thing. Lay on the carpet if you want, go outside. If I was in Mexico in one school. So go outside if you want to, or if you need help, come to the back and I'll be there and we can hang out and I'll help you some more. And I could see all the, some kids were done fast. Some kids needed more help. They needed more time. They needed to move for one thing because classrooms are not really designed for kids. So I remember doing it in teaching. And then while I was I did a sort of what was called special ed. Before that, I probably did it with those kids before I got in my education for teaching. I don't know how much I did it before then. Like, I don't really feel like I don't really remember any times. I could fast forward to like just a few weeks ago. This is not really answering your question, but I was at my garage taking my car in, and the mechanic, all of a sudden, he just launched into this whole story about his history of how he could have gone in this one direction, but his father died and he had to take over the garage and he was the leader. And I was talking how, oh, you're really different from your brother. And because I know his brother there too, they take good care of me. They're like, he's like my older brother, which is awesome because I know nothing about mechanics and cars. And then he probably talked to me for like 20 minutes, which is kind of rare. And then he looks at me, he's like, what do you do for a living? And I just looked at him and I said,
listen to people.
Listen to people, right? I said, well, I work with highly successful entrepreneurs, help them see their downs. And I listened to them and he's like, got it. Like he just had this, like, it was pretty funny. But I think, there's a lot of people out there walking around with unique ability and they don't realize they have a unique ability. I think most people don't have that context for themselves. They don't have that. And it's funny, I haven't thought about it as a context before, but it is. And Dan's brilliant. Dan Sullivan's brilliant at coming up with context. And so this is one context in which to think of yourself. So it really started to solidify when I did my Colby and I came into strategic coach. And I do agree with you if you're going down the path that we've been doing this since we were kids. Oh, wait a minute. I have a story from when I was a kid.
There we go.
It's the same story that my mother always tells about me. And I wish I had more, but I was less than 6 years old because we lived in a small town and moved to Toronto when I was 6. So I would have had to be probably 5. Would have been maybe in kindergarten. And there was a little girl down the street. And she got this is back in the day where we got unhappy face stickers on our papers.
Oh, wow.
And this was like kindergarten. So,
wow.
Because we left when I had only done like a month of grade 1 and then, I don't know. Yeah. And then anyway, and that darn well, I did not like that. She got this unhappy face sticker. So I guess I helped her. I don't remember what I did or whatever, but I helped her. And I helped her turn that frown around, I guess, and get I don't know if she got a happy face sticker, but that was sort of like the first clue of like, ooh, A, I like to help people. B, growth and development, teaching kind of thing came out, which I swore I would never be a teacher. It's funny. And then I ended up being a teacher. So that is one small. And I do think my mom taught us how to read when we were at home. So by the time I got into school, she was into all sorts of cool alternative things. And as was my father. And so she went through this Doman and Delgado program where she taught us how to read at home. So it wasn't like I was gifted or anything like that, but I just had the advantage of my mom teaching us that. So when I got to school, I already knew how to read. And they're like, oh, we don't know what to do with, my sister as well. Like, we don't know what to do with you. This is grade 1. This is where we teach you how to read. And so I do remember like helping the other kids. Like I would go and, read to them, or the Blue Jay group, or the Go Jays, the Bluebird group, or the Red Robin. There were different bird names. That's all I remember. And and I did, help them, and not individually, but that sort of nurturing, supporting, helping side of me came true.
Yeah, well, it's something that when you had mentioned, I'm jumping back a little bit, but when you said you got to coach and they didn't want you to be like Shannon, and I'm a huge fan of the Waller, the Waller family. And here's what's interesting about the two of you, and probably your mom. I know your mom, the least of the two of you, but or the three of you, excuse me. But I actually could see both of you, both Shannon and you, both being more than serviceable at each other's jobs. You know what I mean? Like if they had put you, but it's really a testament to the difference between and to serviceable to really effective to being the difference between that and unique ability. And I think that's the testament of what the power of unique ability is. It's not that you end up failing if you don't. You just end up with more of the same, as opposed to, ironically, the real diversification, right? Yeah. Because when you think about, and I don't know, I mean, I know both of your stories a little bit, so I don't want to reinvent a different version of what happened, but she did all that stuff around teamwork,
yes,
along with others, right? That's not her only claim to fame, but a lot of work around teams. And then you did sort of like the inner working of teams, which is how do we have really great individual performers but we can still talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think, I mean, you end up with actually substantially better than if you just had two awesome coaches, in the front of the room. Like that wouldn't be awful, but instead you end up with something much, much better. Because my guess is Shannon probably also doesn't create teams if it was so the blinders were on, or does a lot less in teams if the blinders on. No, what we need you to do is we need you just to replicate Dan.
Yeah.
And we need 10 more of you, right? Like, yeah. Yeah, really interesting.
It's funny because both of our things came out of, basically client requests.
Mm-hmm.
So again, entrepreneurial company, right? It comes, what are the dangers, opportunities, and strengths of your clients? Like, what are they asking for? So, and Shannon kept hearing from clients like, oh my gosh, I wish my assistant was psychic. What's your number one criteria for your assistant? Psychic ability, like
Yeah.
I love this strategic coach stuff, but I'm so bad at taking it back to my team. All these complaints and requests that she turned into and then she has always been somehow fascinated with teamwork. I mean, we both actually took some version of organizational, developmental psychology and stuff like that in school.
Yeah.
But I definitely gravitated much more to the individuals and helping the growth and development of people. And Shannon gravitated towards the more group stuff. And she ended up developing the team programs through that. She did a course and then ended up coming up with this pilot program. And Babs was like, yes. Again, Babs is like the yes. And hey, here's a cool idea to support our team members. And then with mine, it was like, again, organic and like one-on-one. And then that turned into it. So we each kind of created our own things within the company, which is pretty cool, really, to be able to do that. And I watched Shannon do a presentation at the ColbyCon, and I mean, she was like giddy how happy she was to get to do this presentation and demonstrate unique ability teamwork with her baton. And, and she was hilarious. And it was so fun to watch her, because now if that had been me, I mean, I would have been freaking out, like, oh my God, she had like a packed room. I would be. So this is like unique ability. Like, could I have done it? Yes. I'm going to say I could have done that presentation in some way, shape, or form. Would it have been excellent? I'm going to say, well, if I practice, which
you probably would have done, but
which I would have done, because I care about excellence. But, because again, difference between really working hard on something and doing something that's natural and energizing for you, you can get to a similar-ish result. It's not going to be as great quality, but the idea of mediocre isn't really appealing, I think, to Shannon or to me. We want and the whole concept of unique ability is around excellence and, first class and like really amazing results, like 10x versus 2x. Like, we want to go big, and we want it to also not be quote unquote hard. Not that life isn't hard in many ways, but again, if it's natural, then it flows. I mean, we could talk about spiritual alignment if you wanted to, but because I do think that's part of it. Like, it's just aligned. It's aligned with who you are. So if we can let Shannon loose in a room full of a bunch of people and she can be physically demonstrating this idea and this concept in a fun, engaging way where people are like, oh my God, I totally get it, and laughing. And we've got Hamish's cartoons up there, which are super hilarious. And that adds another dimension of helping people get the concept, again, all coming together. Then that's really cool. And then I get to go deep dive. Like, I don't know that Shannon would have the patience to sit one-on-one with someone for 12 hours to go through and then, document, listen really hard, organize the information.
No, she had to, she could, but she would.
She had to, obviously. She maybe could, but
she'd be probably looking for another job on the side, but she could do it.
I mean, when she first started Coach, she was doing admin work, which we know.
No, I know that's well. There's with all, I shouldn't say this, but this is my opinion. This is Dan Rogers' opinion. I think that top performers, we have to eat. So if the circumstances are such, we can morph ourselves into almost anything to make sure that we finish where we're supposed to finish. And then, we are using whatever we have left to go find something that fits us better, for sure.
Which is why we try to flip it the other way around, right? Start with the stuff that you find really exciting and cool, and then
totally 100%.
But it's true. Sometimes this gets you guys in trouble because I'll say you guys because you're so darn smart and you're so good. And so I remember talking to one client years ago, but it always like. He just thought, well, why wouldn't I just do this stuff myself? I'm so used to just like doing it myself. And who am I to not do that? Yeah. And it was like scheduling stuff and assistant kind of stuff, which is so vital and so important. Yeah. But it was not his unique ability. He's this total strategic thinker, ideation guy. And it finally, the penny dropped of like, oh, if he spent the time over here in the strategic ideating, what would be the result of that versus him doing this other stuff? He's like, oh, I
Yep.
get it. Never saw him on email again. His assistant took over everything. It was lovely because then I would actually hear back from his office because someone would actually answer because they loved doing that job instead of and he was freed up. But you have to, because you're so resilient and resourceful and smart and capable and determined to achieve the goal, you know, or realize the vision or whatever, however you want to, whatever suits you. I know people have different words for it, and I respect whatever words people have. You know, it's the switch from rugged individualism to unique teamwork. And the more you know what your unique ability is, and you know, Dan always talks about double down on it. And then that's how that's going to be the best for everybody, including your own health, right? Your peace of mind. And
well, I'm hopeful that people will hear and see this for themselves. You know what I mean? I'm hopeful that we're sort of, that's where you sort of count on our greed and our self-centeredness, like, and our laziness and all of that. Like, you know, but what I want to make sure that folks hear, and you have overwhelming experience with it. Strategic Coach is a great demonstration of it. But make sure that if you're fortunate enough to be in a position of leadership, regardless if it's owner or whatever, you're a leader wherever. We all lead somewhere, right?
100%.
This is a really, really great concept that again seems to be sort of counterintuitive to whatever I'll say common sense, because we look at these examples and we end up with something substantially way better. And it's not that the original idea was like, and I'm going to try to dance delicately, or I hope it lands okay. But I don't think Dan and Babs had like a small vision to start. Like they wasn't small, wasn't a bad idea, but there's enough room inside of that these other things can become possible.
Yeah.
As opposed to if we just stick with this is how it has to be, and this is what we conform to, as opposed to, hey, let's help folks uncover for themselves what this unique ability is. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
They created the framework for us in which we can play, basically. Like if it's a big sandbox and we all get to play in our areas of unique ability, that's the ideal. And there is some type of, you know, there's clarity of who we're being a hero to and that kind of, but then the rest of it, there's so much fluidity and flexibility. And if you create it with the unique abilities within, like the creativity, that's the other thing with unique ability, your creativity is going to go bananas, because that's like your world that you're swimming in is yourself. So you're going to have endless, you know, thoughts or ideas, and you're going to be a leader in that area of unique ability. So, you know, like I'm wired my own way, so I'm going to know this way of being wired the best. And then I'm going to help other people, maybe, you know, if I'm good at connecting you with your talents, then people are then going to feel connected to their talents because they're listening to me or they're hearing what I'm saying or I'm reflecting back. And, you know, with all of your ways of thinking, you're helping people think the way that you think. And when you read a book that someone wrote, you're you're thinking the way that they're thinking, right? So we're all kind of sharing our way of thinking, feeling, doing, being, is what I always say, with other people, and getting them to kind of, we're rubbing off on them in some way, shape, or form. We're leaving a little bit of a mark. We're kind of putting a new idea in their head with like, oh, that might change the trajectory of their world, you know, or give them some answer to their problem or some exciting new opportunity or something. So we're all kind of just rubbing off on each other. But yeah, if the leader comes in and says, well, this is the way to do it and here's what to do, it's like, first of all, I'm not going to work with you because I don't want to be told what to do. I think most entrepreneurial team members don't want to be told what to do. We're pretty autonomous. We like to know, I want to know how to succeed. What does success look like? And then I want you to let me get there my way. Now I might need help. I might need encouragement, you know, especially at the beginning, I need a lot more than maybe I need now. Now I'm pretty autonomous with what I do. But being too heavy-handed with doing it in a certain way, then you may as well go work for the government or some other kind of place, or, you know, a different kind of environment than an entrepreneurial one. Let's say.
So you mentioned Colby a couple of times, and so and again, I don't want to put you on the spot and just sort of trust your attention on this one, but what are some of the other tools if folks are like, hey, I hear what you're saying, and I have that issue of I can't see it in myself because I don't have a lot of reference. And I think it is really, really difficult to see the things that are easy because they are just so easy. So what are some of the diagnostic assessments or stuff that people could do or that you think are particularly helpful in sort of uncovering or having folks discover what maybe some of their strengths or unique abilities are?
Yeah, great question. Because this way people can, you really kind of do need the outside feedback because it's so hard to get it from the inside. So there are 3 assessments that I love for unique ability. And there's a 4th one too that Shannon definitely recommends. And I'm learning more about it, which is useful. But I'll start with the unique ability question, which is the letter that you send out. And it's super simple. You can get it at uniqueability.com. And you basically say, hey, friend, and you can send it to 8 or 10 people or more. I've had people send it to 30, 40 people if you want to. More the merrier. And you say, hey, what do you think my unique ability is? You don't even have to explain what unique ability is. You're just like, what do you count on me for? That's part of the question. How do I create value for you? Describe my positive characteristics. And you know what? People are like, is that part of my unique ability? I'm like, yes, it is. Your kindness, your empathy, your strategic thinking, your analytical brain, any of those things can be part of your unique ability. So send that out and get some feedback. And when you get it, don't dismiss it, read it, take it seriously, take it in. So that would be one thing that's super simple to do. You could just do it right. Anybody could just do that today. Then we use the Kolbe, which is Kolbe, Kolbe.com, the Kolbe A, which is the adult version. And that's going to tell you how you strive, how you take action when you're striving. It's your creative problem-solving process. So it's really the how. So Shannon and I, for example, work very differently in how we take action. I am an organizer. I organize information and create stability, and I envision all that in my mind. I don't build things with my hands. Whereas she's going to innovate and improvise, do things at the last minute, experiment. She's going to simplify, she's going to adapt, and she's going to use her hands tangibly, which is why she was demonstrating with the baton.
And she loves her chainsaw.
Oh, her chainsaw. Yes, of course. She loves it. It's so funny because we're at the cottage. I'm up at her cottage and she's chainsawing. I have zero desire to pick up that chainsaw. Zero. I'm like, I will come behind and tidy up the branches and make them in little piles, which helped Bruce rake some leaves last time. Even that, I'm like, I don't know. I'd rather maybe go for a walk or a hike or something and see the colors. But, like the tangible physical things, not so much. I'm like, ugh. Like I told the story actually at ColbyCon too. He was a longer implementer on the Kolbe, and I told him the horrible story of me hanging the pictures in my bedroom last weekend, which took hours and hours and was painful. But I got it. It was not a unique ability activity for me. So anyway, Kolbe's one. The second one I highly recommend it's by Gallup. The Gallup organization is called Clifton Strengths. And you can get your top 34 report there. And it is brilliant for giving you language to understand what you're motivated to take action on. So, and it's, these again are factory installed since birth, and you take a talent, you turn it into a strength because you work on it, you invest in it, you build your muscle around it, you apply it to new situations, you get better and better and better at it. And again, it's counterintuitive to the, people get this list of 34. They're like, oh, I should fix the bottom ones. No, don't touch the bottom ones. They call them, they've got some good models actually for this whole counterintuitive idea, but those are called non-talents. If you're getting in trouble because of the non-talents, then non-talents, I love it.
I just love how we sanitize everything. Yeah. They're not weaknesses. We wouldn't say they're weaknesses.
Well,
we would just say
we do talk about
they're non-talents.
They do talk about, well, they're maximizers. So I'm a maximizer too. So maximizers.
No, I think it's great. It's great.
Yeah, call it whatever you want. I don't care, but don't focus your time on it.
That's the key.
What's important,
That's the key.
right?
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
But the cool thing is that what they'll say is use your top 5 strengths or your top 10 strengths to mitigate those bottom ones. That's what you need to do. Or you find someone to help you, and then you use the who, not how premise of finding a who instead of figuring out how to do it. Or you struggle through and you hang your pictures up like I did because I was the only one around, and I did it myself because I wanted to get it done, and and then the third assessment that we started using over the last few years more recently is called the print assessment, which helps understand your deepest unconscious why, your deepest motivators. And it is, at first, again, I always take a little time to marinate in things first, but once I understood it more deeply, it is fascinating. And when you see what my print is and you see what I do every day, you can see total alignment. I mean, it's really, my motivators are to be special and find meaning in life. So I help people see how unique they are and help them see their purpose in life, which to me, unique ability is directly tied to that. And my second one is to be needed and appreciated. So I'm a 4-2, if you know the numbers of print. The 2 is really to meet people's needs and to help and to make a contribution like I did when I was a little kid. And so I want to help people find their purpose and be the most helpful they can to the world around them. And if you look at my strengths, I'm always maximizing the connections to people's talents and to each other to build bridges between people so we can understand people who are so different than us. And yet I believe we're all fully connected, if we look deeper at all the spiritual connections that we have, because we're all one and everything. So, hey, let's get along and let's figure out how we can, be valued and needed and appreciated, which is my 2 print. Using my unique talents to create a contribution. So the Colby, the Clifton Strengths, and the print are the 3 I love. And then the unique ability question. Shannon talks about working genius, which is another one by Patrick Lencioni. If you're on a team, again, it's more of a team focused one. For me, when I got mine back, I'm like, yep, totally makes sense. Enablement tenacity, which is basically enabling and supporting people. And I can be tenacious when I want to be, if it's something I really care about. Otherwise, no. But for the things, I force closure. I like things to be finished. And that also goes along with my 8 follow through on the Colby. So mine kind of all, mirrored and reflected the other things. So those are great assessments. Sometimes people are like, oh, but I'll be boxed in. And, people have these objections to assessments. But, you talked about being well-rounded earlier. It's like, there are some people where it is their unique ability to be good at a lot of things but that actually is their unique ability. But a lot of us, that is not. Like, I am a specialist. I'm kind of like honed in on certain area, and that's how I am wired, and that's how I kind of want to be in this life. Like, I'm really about helping people connect with and discover and develop their uniqueness. And if I do that for the next 25 years, totally fascinating to me, in maybe different ways, but yeah.
And I think one thing on the diversification or looking at the non-talents, I
think
think
the weaknesses if you want.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's okay.
You really want to revel
I'm gonna go with that one. I'm non-talented in that. Yeah, that's a non-talent for me, unless they're getting in the way of where you want to go.
Yeah.
Then that's a different thing. That's totally different thing, because then it serves a purpose. Like, we're not just doing it because we didn't score well. We're doing it because we need capacity and competency to get to where we want to go. Yeah,
we're not doing it just to get the A. Like, school is all designed like, oh, get A's in everything. Well, you know what? Some kids aren't going to get A's in everything, and they're really, really good at math, and they suck at gym or whatever. And then there's some who are the opposite, and so we are from a young age sort of brought into this world of having to be good at everything. And if you get someone to help you, you're cheating. Where, I've got stories of people who were not appreciated in the school system. And yet now that's how they make a kick-ass living, doing, enrolling other people to do their work for them, or finding shortcuts, or all these things that in school are not appreciated. Not really.
Might be a poor design.
Might be some poor design. Speaking to the systems guy in front of me.
Code, potentially. There might be an opinion out there about that.
It doesn't. I don't even need to be an expert in systems to see that.
I'm just like, case in point. No, I think we spent far more time in naming the system than we did designing it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the issue with it, right? So
it hasn't really evolved either. So that's another.
No, 100%. And I mean, there's just no iteration on that, right? So awesome. I would love to come back to this again.
Sure. It's been super fun talking to you today.
Thanks for listening to Beats Working, Winning the Game of Work. If something resonated, share the episode and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, clarity isn't something you find, it's something you practice. And getting paid to practice life beats working to get paid.